This is 2,000 poker players fighting for their share of $5 million, and one of them is me. My flight lands at 10:50, and I've got to get to the registration desk before it closes at midnight. It all seems smooth at first. I'm through security, my flight's on time, but then at the boarding gate, I overhear someone say that they needed to check their carry-on because the flight's full and there's no more room for storage. If I check my bag, I'm not gonna make it in time. So I'm standing there waiting for my section to be called, and all of a sudden, attention JetBlue customers, section B, flight 77 Boston to Las Vegas may now board. I go up to the desk, hand her my boarding pass, and she lets me through. We taxi on the runway for way too long, and we end up leaving 20 minutes late. My neighbor is actually heading to Vegas for the same reason that I am, so we agree to share a ride to the casino. Hopefully the rideshare pickup is close by, and we can just hop in and go. Nope. The Uber pickup is on the other side of the airport. We have to walk to a monorail and then walk another half mile. We finally get there, and there must be 100 people waiting. Thankfully, our driver Elam says he's 3 minutes away. On the way to the casino, Tucker drops a bombshell on me, and he says I need a Wynn Rewards card to register for the tournament. So I do it in the back of the Uber. We pull up to the Encore, and we hustle into the lobby. We got about 10 minutes, and I'm not really worried at this point, but I'm walking quickly. The woman at registration says, "Did you check in at VIP first? Because you need to do that." So we run down the hallway. They're closing up by the time we get there. The woman sees us and says, "Shit, I gotta get you checked in now. The registration is gonna close in 5 minutes." She gives us our golden passports, and then she says we need to print our player's card in order to register. So where can we do that? Oh, there's 2 kiosks outside the registration room. All right, run back down the hallway. There's 2 kiosks with a man in front of one, and the other one says out of order. The one that's being occupied, I can see on the screen that the guy's typing in his email and he's just struggling to do it. I'm like, dude, I've got like 4 minutes, so please just do what you gotta do and get it over with. He prints his player's card. He gets out of the way. I put my ID in and say print card. Duplicate entries found. See rewards desk. So I take my ID back, I go to the cage, I give him my phone with my rewards card information on it, and just pray it's good enough. Thankfully, it was enough, and at 11:57 p.m., I'm officially registered for the tournament. A huge weight gets lifted off my shoulders, and I can finally relax a little bit. I want an easy, stress-free morning, so I find where my table's at, check into my room, and call it a night. I wake up before my alarm feeling so refreshed. It could be the premium down comforter provided by the luxurious 5-star Encore hotel, or the fact that I just got to keep it all night. I have a nice leisurely morning and get my last bit of fresh air for what I hope to be a long day inside. Even after all these years, I still get anxious. It's tough to manage all the different emotions inside when the potential outcomes of this tournament are so monumental. Even though we're a long way from winning this thing, it has to be possible in your head before it can in reality. I've been in these situations many times before, and my experience will help me handle it better than my opponents. This tournament was supposed to have 2,000 players, but only about 1,400 showed up. That's great news for everyone that did, because it means we've already beaten out over 500 players and gained about $1,000 in free equity. Huge thank you to Club WPT Gold for sponsoring me and one of my viewers in this tournament. I sit down at my table and make friends with the dealer as I do best to calm the nerves that are flowing through me. Everyone starts with 25,000 in chips, and we play until one person has it all. My plan is to stay out of trouble early, play small pots, and chip up where I can. Literally the second hand of the tournament, I'm dealt Jack-9 suited in the small blind. It folds to the button who makes it 300. All 3 options are on the table here, but I decided to go with what I think is best and raise to 1,100. After I throw my chips in, the dealer fans them out to reveal their value. Immediately I realize I threw the wrong chips out. It's 2,100 to go, and the action's back to him. He folds. Phew. Remember that part about my experience giving me an edge? Yeah, me neither. I stack my chips so I can see the numbers like a noob, so I can avoid that mistake again. God, I'm old. Phil Ivey comes over and asks for my advice on a hand, but I really need to focus, so I tell him I'll catch up with him later. We folded for about an hour, and blinds are now up to 200-300 with a 300 ante. Under the gun +1, who we later learn is Andrew and a fan of the vlog, min raises to 600. The very active player to my right makes the call, and I look down at pocket 10s on the button. My hand is a little too strong to call. I don't have that much information on Andrew yet, but I have solid information on our neighbor. He's playing way too many pots and his range is weak here. Against multiple opponents, raising is the preferred option. I make it 2,100. Both blinds fold, and our neighbor folds out of turn. Andrew calls, and our neighbor is clearly somewhere else.
Show me the top one. The good one. Oh wait, it's just over the man.
Yeah, you folded out of turn.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Holy shit.
No big deal. Flop comes queen 3 deuce with 2 hearts, and he donk bets for 1,000. His bet size tells me he's weak, but I also don't want to build this pot too big. I make the call. Turn is the deuce of clubs, and again he takes the lead with a small bet of 1,500. Donking twice into the aggressor is a strange line that most people don't take, so I'm not sure what I'm up against. I think he's most likely going to show up with a flush draw or a middling pair like 8s through jacks. This seems like a decent spot to raise, but I've also seen this play done with a weak queen like queen jack. Wanting to conserve chips, I decide on a call. River is the 9 of spades, and he fires a third barrel for 2,500. At this point, it feels like I'm getting brought to Value Town. I'm getting too good a price to fold, but I still may be good. I make the call, and he turns over ace-king. I'm happy to get 3 streets of value, even if it's not how I anticipated. My stack is now over 30k. I do a bit of yo-yoing before coasting into the first break with 29k. After 2 hours of play, we've lost 160 players. Glad I'm not one of them. With blinds up to 300-600 with a 600 ante, each pot now has 1,500 chips in it before the cards are dealt. Winning uncontested pots start to matter more. Not too long after break, Andrew makes it 1,400 from the low jack. It folds to me in the big blind, and for 800 more, King 9 is strong enough for a defend. I make the call. Flop comes King 10-8 rainbow, and I start with a check. He doesn't think too long before checking behind. When he checks behind on this board, I'm pretty confident I have the best hand. The turn is the deuce of spades, and I want to start getting value from my customer. I take the lead with a bet of 1,400. He quickly calls. River is the deuce of diamonds, and I want to squeak out just a little more value from hands like ace-queen and ace-jack, so I go with a small size of 2,100. As he calls, I turn over my hand and he mucks. About 10 minutes later, I pick up king-queen off in the low jack, and I open to 1,300. It folds to Andrew in the small blind, who makes it 4,000 with 5k behind. The big blind folds, and this is a pretty interesting spot. Andrew's got about 15 big blinds to start the hand, and he decides to 3-bet to 4k instead of going all in. This leads me to believe that he's at the top of his range. If he had jacks or 10s, he's going to want more protection with his fold equity by shoving. Same thing if he had ace-10 or ace-jack. This can also go the other way, and he could be thinking, I don't want to put my whole stack in yet with my small pair, but I think it's much more likely the former. With short stacks, it's helpful to think about what I would do if my opponent had shoved instead. If he had shoved, the pot would be almost 12k, and it would be about 8k for us to call. We need 39% equity to make that call profitable. I'm fairly certain king-queen doesn't have anywhere close to that here, so I make the laydown. Another 10 minutes go by, and the blinds are now up to 400-800 with an 800 ante. It folds to me in the cutoff, and I look down at king-queen again. I open for 1,700, and only the big blind makes the call. Flop is jack 9-5 with 2 diamonds, and he checks. Sometimes I'll check back with 2 overs and a gut shot, but with these stack sizes, I'd rather bet and put the pressure on him. I bet 1,800 to fold out some of his ace-high hands, as well as give me some options to win this later against his weaker holdings. He makes the call. We see the jack of spades hit the turn, putting a second flush draw on board, and he checks again. This isn't the best card for me to keep barreling, because it's a good card for a lot of his hands that call the flop. I may be able to make him believe I have a jack, and there are a lot of scare cards that could still come on the river, as well as outs for me to make my hand. I continue betting for 3,800, and he makes the call. River is an interesting 10 of diamonds, completing the flush draw and my straight. The big line has about 15,000 left, and I start reviewing my options. Although it will be very painful to get check raised, as Brad Owen says, we can't be scared of monsters under the bed. His most likely hands here are going to be a 9 or a 5, and this river is going to make it difficult to get value. I quickly rule out shoving, because although in theory maybe it works, I think it's much less likely someone puts their tournament life at risk with either of those hands. I want to make it large enough for him to think it could be a bluff, but small enough where he still feels like he has enough chips behind if he makes the call and loses. I bet 7,000. My size seems to be good because a minute goes by and he still hasn't folded. Unfortunately, he finds the correct fold, but we still scoop a good sized pot. Our stack is up to 41k, and seat 9 decides it's time for some new faces, so he knocks out 2 players with pocket kings. Shortly after that, I go on a little mini heater, picking up 4 pots with little resistance, chipping up to 55,000. Trying to build on that heater, I look down at queen jack suited and come in for 2,100. Everyone folds and both blinds make the call. Flop is 10-9-5 with 2 diamonds, which is a good start for me. I have an open-end straight draw with 2 overs, but there's also a flush draw on board, meaning some of our outs may not be good. The action starts with both blinds checking. With how many pots I've just won with no showdown, I decide to check this one back and realize my equity against an opponent who covers me. The turn is the 10 of spades, and the small blind takes the lead with a bet of 2,700. The big blind folds, and I'm not going anywhere. I make the call. River is the ace of diamonds completing the flush, and the small blind slows down with a check. This is a good card to execute a bluff as it completes the flush, and with how I play this hand, I could certainly have an ace. I'm pretty sure his hand is not that strong, most likely a 9 or a 5, or a pocket pair below 9s. Sometimes he'll connect with the ace, with ace 9 or ace 5 suited as well. I try to think of the size that I would bet with ace king or ace queen, and decide if I think he'll fold. I bet 6,500, hoping he'll fold. My opponent thinks for quite some time, before finally finding the call. Unfortunately, we lose a lot of the ground we just gained, but that's poker. Blinds are up again, and our loose aggressive neighbor makes it 2,400. I've got king 9 suited in the hijack, which is a relatively good hand and would play well as a 3-bet against this player. However, the stack sizes behind are a little bit dicey if I 3-bet and they shove, as I may be committing myself to a call. I'm also not worried about the smaller stacks abusing my flat here, as a lot of them are in survival mode. I've been watching my neighbor closely for 4 hours and have picked up some valuable info that I want to put to use. I decide on a call. The cutoff then overcalls, potentially foiling my plans. Everyone else folds, and we're going 3 ways to a flop. 9-3-3 is about as good as I could ask for, and although I plan to steal this pot, maybe I won't have to. The low jack checks, and I bet 3,500. The cutoff calls, and the low jack folds. Heads up to a turn that brings the comforting 9 of hearts, which basically locks up this hand for me. There's only one hand that beats me right now, and I'm not concerned about that. I continue building the pot and extracting value with a bet of 4,800. He calls again. I try to contain my excitement and slow my breathing. This has been a day of interesting rivers, and this hand is no exception. It comes the 3 of spades. Unless either of us has a 9, 3, or 10s plus, we're chopping this pot. With the action of this hand, I think it's most likely my opponent has a hand like pocket 7s, which he is now playing the board and hoping for a chop. He's got about 30k left, and all bet sizes are on the table for different reasons. A small bet is likely to get called, and sometimes will induce a raise to get us off a hand that he chops with. A good chunky value bet has a good chance of getting called as well. And lastly, going for it all, forcing him to risk 30k or forfeit the 11 he's put in. Maybe in 10 years, YouTube will have a choose your own adventure sim, and you can play this hand. Thankfully, I don't have to edit those videos, and you're stuck with my decisions for now. I think he folds to a shove, so scratch that off the list. Although I think he does call a small bet, this is one of the larger pots that's been played at this table, and I feel like he's not going to want to give it up. I size up to 14.5. He thinks for a full minute before finally making the correct fold. Nice fold, Roger. We run through the blinds and get to break with a little over 59k. They're coloring up the black chips, which means I've got 4 chances to turn one of those into a 500 chip. Somehow, with 4 chances, we lose them all, and we get to break with 59k even. My phone doesn't quite hold a charge like it used to, and I need to bring it up to my room to plug it in. Thankfully, I've got my old phone to continue recording the action. Everyone reconvenes after break, and we all bag up our chips and travel to the main poker room. We sit down with the same players in the same positions, just a new room, new table, new phone. Well, old phone, but you get it. There's 816 players left, and 503 make the money. Normally in multi-day tournaments, making the money doesn't come until the 2nd or 3rd day, but with over 1/3 of the field making the money in this tournament and a quick structure, it's coming much sooner. Blinds are now 1,000, 1,500 with a 1,500 ante that's paid by the big blind. The average stack is 30 bigs, and I've got 40. I'm feeling comfortable, but I also know that a lot can change in an instant. My plan is to continue picking up pots where I can and try to build my stack for when we get to the bubble stage. Bigger stacks have a big advantage of that stage and can really put the pressure on the smaller stacks. About 15 minutes later, the table breaks, and we have to bid farewell to our table mates. I'm now in the 8 seat, and this new table is mostly talkative and friendly. My kind of table. I post my big blind, and as the table folds to the small blind, it looks like I may get a nice warm welcome walk. That would be nice, but the small blind wants to see a flop. He calls. I look down at 7-8 suited, a great hand to bump up the price. There are hands that have us out kicked that he would potentially limp fold, and by raising it gives me more options once we get to the streets. I don't want to go too big here, as I want to leave us some playability post-flop. He makes the call, and the dealer puts out a glorious rainbow flop of 7-5 deuce. We've got top pair with backdoor flush and straight draws, which is a very strong hand heads up. Before he even acts, I'm thinking to myself, I'm willing to go the distance if it comes to that. He checks. I bet out for 6k and anxiously await his decision. He folds. On my next big blind, the table isn't so nice. It folds to the button who jams for 12 big blinds. We take a look at a pretty queen-jack offsuit, which looks better than it is. Being this close to the money, the button isn't shoving that wide, and he's wearing that info on his sleeve. We easily throw this one into the muck. 2 hands later, the same player opens the hijack for 6K, and I'm on the button. I've got pocket 10s. I've got him covered, but both the blinds have me covered. It would really suck to bust right here, right now, but we don't play to min cash, and this is just too good a hand to fold. I'm all in. The small blind tanks for a good 30 seconds before finally letting his hand go. When it gets back to the original raiser, he does the same. He says tight fold, as I drag the pot, adding 13-5 to my stack. The very next hand, I pick up a monster. It folds to me, and I've got queens in the cutoff. The 3 players behind me all have me covered. Part of me just wants to jam, because it would be pretty gross to get jammed on if I open. I don't see a world in which I would fold to a jam, but live tournaments are so different than online. Bubbling an online tournament is like, so what, you've got 12 more going. Live tournaments, you've stopped your life, traveled 3,000 miles, and played this single tournament for the better part of a day. To come so far and get so close, only to walk away with nothing, is a pain you'll feel for the rest of your life. It's also worth noting that a min cash is not only $1,000. The payout structure of this tournament has $2.1 million in other prizes, including $720K in mystery bounties and $1 million in the consolation drum. Mystery bounties are just an extra bonus that you get for knocking out players. The mystery element is that you don't know what the prize is going to be, but it can be anywhere from $500 to $100,000. The consolation drum is a barrel with envelopes where 1 in 5 is a seat to the 10K WPT World Championship. Basically, places 298 through 503 get an additional $2,100 in equity. Places 9 through 297 get an added $4,500, and the final table gets an additional $45,000 in equity thanks to the massive mystery bounties at the final table. Anyway, I open to $6,500. No one jams, but both blinds call. Flop comes King 6-3 Rainbow, and both blinds check. This is a great spot to check behind because there aren't many cards on the turn that hurt me, and it's not likely I'm going to get called by worse that often. If either of these players is any good, they can just put a little bit of pressure on me, and I'll just fold like a wimp. With that being said, I bet $7,500. I figure I can win it now, or at least get it heads up, which increases my chances of winning this hand. The small blind calls, and the big blind jams for $125K. Pretty easy decision here, and I'm guessing he flopped a monster as the small blind has him covered. Kinda kicking myself for not checking back there, but we all make mistakes. We're now hand for hand and the play is paused. You can feel the energy in the air. 20 players to go. Next hand I look down at Jack 3 offsuit. Thankfully don't have to sweat this one. 516 left. We lose 8 players and Under the Gun jams for 20K. I'm pretty happy to peel a deuce first and not the other card. The table folds and everybody's safe for now. Next hand I'm Under the Gun +1. I look down at pocket 5s. I've got 13 big blinds, but with the bubble likely breaking this hand, it's not worth the shove. I throw my 5s into the muck. We catch the action on another table where kings run into aces. At another close by table, 10-5 offsuit is all in on his big blind against ace-6. We lose another one. 505 left. Another blind is forced all in, and we get to see the action. It's king 8 versus 6-7, and the king 8 is at risk. The flop is jack 5-5, and I'll let the maestro take it from here. And we lose one more. 504 left. There's a big hand at the other table with ace-10 offsuit, aces, and jack-4. Ace-10 has the biggest stack, but jack-4 is on life support. Flop is 8-7-6 all clubs. Nobody has a club, but now ace-10 and jack-4 both have straight draws. Any card but a 5, and the bubble bursts.
None of these players have a club in their hand. We'll go to the turn card. It's a 3.
Turn is a 3 of diamonds, changing nothing.
One card to come. We could lose our player on the bubble. Here we go. It's a 3 of clubs. We are down to 503. You're in the money.
At this point, the floodgates are open, and people start dropping like flies from here. About 10 minutes later, I'm down to 10 bigs, and I pick up pocket aces. First time on the vlog, welcome, so good to see you. Time to put these cards to work and get all my money in the middle. I raise to 8K. It folds to the button who makes the fold, and both blinds also fold. We go through the blinds and have the chips that we just won sent back to the table. As the clock winds down to the next break, Under the Gun raises to 8K. I look down at ace jack offsuit. I'm not in love with it, but I gotta go with it. I'm all in. He takes a full minute deliberating before finally folding his small pair in agony. I was a slight dog, so I'm happy to survive another hand. Unfortunately, we burn about a minute of our break in that last hand. I've got to go back up to my room to grab my phone. I don't like to miss any hands in tournaments, especially when stacks are shallow, because a single hand can be the difference between busting out and going on to win. Anytime I go on break, I set my phone timer to the same as the break timer, so I know exactly how much time I have to get back. I get to my room, grab my phone, use the bathroom, and head for the elevators. Time is tight, and as long as we don't have to pick up a bunch of people on the way down, I should be fine.
Come on, elevator. Let's go.
We breeze through all the hotel floors, and we're almost there, when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the lights flicker, a slight bounce. The numbers on the display freeze. My stomach lurches as the elevator hum dies out, leaving nothing but the hollow elevator music.
Why are we stuck?
What if I didn't press the button hard enough? Nothing. Okay, stay calm. The door open button. Still nothing.
Seriously? What the fuck?
No.
No. This is not happening right now. Panic starts to creep in. Is this really how my tournament ends? Stuck in a metal box while my chips get blinded off? Is this going to be the title of this video? Focus, breathe, think. Should I use the emergency button? Relief floods in, but it's short-lived. I'm not on my floor. I'm on the spa level, one level higher than where I need to be. Can I trust this thing to take me just one more floor? I don't know where the stairwell is, and I've lost a whole minute already. My heart pounds in my ears. I hit the door close button, knowing I don't have a choice. Come on, elevator. Do your job. I've got 2 minutes to get from here to here. We've all seen that guy running through the casino. Well, today, that's me. Let's go.
Lines are now 3-5. 3-5.
Thank you to this guy right here. Dressed in all pink, you were the perfect landmark for me to make my way back. "10 minutes after the break, I'm under the gun, and I peel ace-king suited. With 12 big blinds, I could min-raise, but I'm still so flustered, I'm thinking the blinds are 3-6. I'm all in. The guy to my left wants a count. It's 59K. He's all in. It folds to the small blind, and he's all in for less. I'm up against ace-queen and nines. Nines have a slight advantage here, but we're going to win this pot a little bit over a third of the time, and we just need to beat ace-queen to stay alive. Let's go." That's not the flop I was hoping for, but you see that queen? It's the queen of clubs, which means any club on the turn gives us an additional 8 more outs. A jack, 10, 2, or 3 gives us a straight draw as well. And just like that, my run comes to an end. I knew those were my least favorite queens for a reason. It's never easy busting out of a tournament, but this one hurts a little less. Every player that makes the money gets to pull an envelope out of the consolation drum for a 1 in 5 chance of winning a seat to the $10,000 World Championship that starts tomorrow. I pulled from the drum, and we're not going home yet.